Gewaltig. Okay, so we are at the bottom of Samach Cheomad base. There's two dots, 5 lines from the bottom. Sog to Gemara. Who Gavro? The Zoban La'aray L'Chavre. Shloi Bachrayis. Someone sold the property without a chrayis, meaning if his Balchoiv will go and seize the property from the Lekeach has no recourse. After the deal, Chazia Davakotzev. The seller saw that the buyer is having buyer's remorse. He's very sad because he ended up buying something without a chrayis. Amar late to comfort him, he said, Amaya Tzivas, why are you so sad? I'll tell you what. Itarfu laminach. If my Balchoiv ends up seizing it from you, Magvinalach, I will pay you back, Shufra, with the best properties that I have. Shvacha, if you improve the field in any way, I'll pay you that as well. Uperi, and if you grew Paris on it, I will give you those as well. So the question is that a valid commitment? If in fact the property does get seized, would the seller be mechuyev to compensate the buyer? So Omar Amemar said, and this is now we're going on to Samach Vav Amar Aleph. Omar Amemar said, I'm just going to turn the blot over. Amemar said, Petumi Mila Bi'almahu. It's not really a commitment. He was just saying it to calm the buyer, but it's not a commitment. And therefore, in the event that his Balchoiv seizes the property from the buyer still has no recourse. And Tosfos speaks out. That's, of course, if this happened after they sealed the deal. If during the deal, before it was sealed, they made up that he's going to provide a chrayis, of course, he has to provide a chrayis. Amalei Ravashi Lamen. Ravashi asked Amen, Taima Mai. What is the reason why, if the moicher makes this commitment, that it's not considered a valid commitment? Who is the one who should be demanding a chrayis? Because it benefits the lekeach. Here it's the moicher that's providing the chrayis, where he's not getting anything, he's just giving. There you say he didn't really mean it. But if the person who's benefiting from this feature that he's mentioning, that's very serious. So based on that, Svara, Zok Gemara, let's look at the Brisa we learned at the end of Daf Samachet. The Brisa that the Gemara quoted said, if a buyer purchases a property and he tells the seller, if you come up with the money, I will return the property to you. Mutter, that's not considered ribbis. But forget the ribbis component. That's why the Gemara quoted it. Let's look at whether or not this is an actual commitment. Who is the one who should demand such a tanai? The moicher, because he wants the ability to be able to buy his property back in the event that he finds the money. The moicher who the boy lost. In this case, in the Brise's case, moicher lo yasni. It wasn't the moicher who made this tanai. The lekeach kamasni. It was lekeach who said, if you have the money, I'll sell it back to you. The Gemara asked on Lamed Beis, Maishna Reisha, Maishna Seifa. Why is it that if the Lekeach makes the commitment, makes the commitment, that's going to be mutter? But if the Moicher asks for the commitment, then it's going to be aser. What's the difference? Maishna Reisha, Maishna Seifa. Either way, it's a commitment, and the commitment would indicate that it's not a legitimate sale. It's a loan it's a loan that's cloaked as a sale. Zakt Gemara. The answer was, what did Rava say yesterday? The Amar Rava, Sefer the Amar Le Midaite. You know why when the Lekach makes the commitment, we don't consider it a good commitment, it's because he never said that I'm obliging myself to sell it back to you. He said, at that point in time, if you have the money to buy back, we'll have a discussion. Maybe I'll sell it back to you. So it wasn't a commitment. But it's mashma, time of the amalimidate. The only reason why we don't consider it a commitment is because he made it quite clearly that I'm not going to be committing myself. I'm open to it. We could discuss it should you come up with the money. But had the Lekeach not said that it's going to be up to me, I'll decide later. Rather, if the Lekeach actually made a commitment to give back the property, to sell back the property, should the Moicher come up with the funds, we don't say that he didn't mean it. But what we just learned now is that since the Lekeach is not benefiting from making this condition to give it back, it's not a good tonight. We always say he didn't really mean it. It's merely petuma mili ba'almo. So you have a raya connected what we said. Amalezak Gemara Nasa commando amale midaytei. What Rava meant was since the purchaser is saying that, consistent with what we're saying over here, that he's not the one who benefits from this tonight, automatically we discount his words and we say he doesn't really mean to commit himself. It's petuma mili. He just means to say, if you come up with the money later on, I'll consider selling it back to you without any commitment at all. Zog to Gemara. So now we're on the discussion of somebody who makes a commitment. Under what circumstances is that commitment actually obliging the person? Or when do we say that they're just saying it because they want to be nice, but they don't really mean to commit themselves?
Yossi,
Yes.
the land is valued today at $1 million.
Right.
When he says that he's going to buy it back, when you have the money, we'll talk. It's worth $1,200,000.
Right.
So he's not going to have any interest in selling it for $1 million.
For sure not. That's right. So there's no commitment here at all.
Yeah. And if it goes down from $1 million to $800,000, he's going to want to have it sold.
So that's exactly why we say it's not a commitment. When the time comes that you might be interested in buying it back, we'll see what the situation is there, and I'll make a decision at that time based on what's going on.
So according to the one Mandioma that says that it is a commitment, and the other one says it's not a commitment. You can't jump on two.
Nobody argues. Everybody agrees it's not a commitment. Yeah, everybody agrees it's not a commitment. There's no mechalitz about it. Everybody agrees that wouldn't be a commitment.
Okay.
And a good reason for it is exactly what you're saying. Why would somebody commit to such a situation where it could really work against them? So I'm sorry.
So it really doesn't mean anything.
The only person who benefits from this is the seller. If the seller makes a condition that I can buy back at the original sale price, there you know that he really wants that. And should the buyer agree, that's a commitment to do that. But the seller, it's only the seller who would be really serious about wanting a commitment like that. The moicher, the buyer would not be serious about that at all. That's why it's not a commitment. Haush Chimera, the cause of Lagita Ladvisim. There was a Chimera who was dying. They didn't have children, and he had a surviving brother. So he didn't want his wife to fall to Yibum to his brother. So what did he do? He wrote her a get. After he wrote her the get, he had second thoughts. Ingid Vasnach. He krechts and he sighed. In other words, she saw that he wasn't happy that he gave her the get. Amrla, she told him, my dear husband, you have nothing to worry. Amaika misnachas. Why are you krechetzing? Ikaimos, if you survive, didachano, I'm yours. So is now that a commitment that the get will be bottled if, in fact, this person survives? So Amr Abzvid, of course not. Petume mile ba'almahu. It's not really a commitment on her behalf. Who cares if she's making a commitment or not? Any commitment she makes has zero impact on the validity of a get. What are you telling me? That if she was sincere, she could be machayir herself, that the get won't be valid in the event that her husband survives? She has no influence or power over the get. It's only the husband who, when he gives the get, he can put a t'nai into it. He didn't put a t'nai into it, so anything that she said would have zero impact. So why are you declaring, is she sincere, is she not sincere? It's not relevant. Zok to Gemara, I'll tell you what the chiddush is. Ma'u tema hu gufei adaita dida kagomer v'yav gita. Look at this. You would think that even when he's giving her a get, he's still mevatel his das to her, and he's giving it to her based on the way she wanted structured. Kamash malon, that no, when he's giving her a get, it's a get without any t'nai at all. Even though she expressed that she wants that t'nai, it doesn't matter unless he expresses that t'nai. There's no t'nai in the get, and therefore the get is for sure a good get. Hilveyu also day. The Mishnah talks about a case where somebody lends money. I'm lending you $100,000, and I'm taking your field, which is worth $130,000, as collateral. Naturally, no one's going to take collateral that's worth the amount of the loan. Most people will only finance 70% of the loan. You have to have more equity in the land than the loan is worth. So it's usually a loan of 70% to value. So that's what he did. But he said that if you don't pay me back within 3 years, I get to keep your field, which means that I'm going to keep a field that's worth $130,000, even though the loan was only $100,000. Amar Rafuna, Zok Rafuna, B'shas matan mois kanakon. If this t'nai was made, the loiva agreed to these terms that if he doesn't pay back within 3 years, the malva gets to keep the property. If he made this commitment at the time that he was receiving the loan, and Rashi points out, there's no point in time where a loiva feels more indebted to the malva than the moment that he's getting the money. So there is the most sincere possibility of a commitment. At that point, if he made the commitment, he means business. And he means actually to forfeit a $130,000 field over the $100,000 loan. But la'acher matan mois, if they had this discussion after the loiva had already received the money, loikon ela keneged mois. There his only commitment would be if he's committing that the malva can extract from the field the value of the loan, the $100,000. But he surely doesn't intend to give the full field. Rav Nachman said no. Afilu la'acher matan mois kana hakon. If a loiva, even after matan mois, says, you know what, malva, that field that you have as collateral, I don't pay you back within 3 years, the whole thing is yours. It will be a good commitment, and the malva will be able to keep the field, should the loiva not pay back. Avad Rav Nachman uvda gabe reish kalusa kishmait say. Rav Nachman paskin halacha l'maita. There was the entire that the reish kalusa was involved with, and Rav Nachman paskin like his shita, that since the loiva made a commitment to forfeit his field in the event that he doesn't pay back on time, even though the field is worth more than the loan value, the malva gets to keep the field, and that's Rav Nachman paskin. But Rabbi Yehuda didn't like that psak. So he wanted to circumvent the psak of Rav Nachman, Karei Rabbi Yehuda l'shtar. He tore up the shtar. So the Chassam Sofer speaks out. Rabbi Yehuda wouldn't dare defy a psak halacha. Rav Nachman said that the field belongs to the malva. How could Rabbi Yehuda take it away from the malva? So the Chassam Sofer, Rabbi Yehuda tore up the shtar before the deadline occurred. So the kinyan didn't happen yet. But he tore up the shtar to circumvent Rav Nachman's halacha. So Amar Reish Kalusa, the Reish Kalusa snitched on Rav Yehuda to Rav Nachman and told him, Rav Yehuda, Kara l'shtar, he tore up your shtar. So Rav Nachman's response was, Amar Lei, what are you snitching on Rav Yehuda? Dardik Kare, what do you think Rav Yehuda's a kid, little child? Gavra Rabba Kare. He is a great man, Rav Yehuda. And if he ripped up the shtar, he probably has a very valid reason to do so. Chaza Beitaima, he saw some reason, Vikare, and don't ask conscious. But at Ika da Amri, Rab Nachman said something completely different. Amar Le, Dad Kikare. Rabbi Yehuda taught my star, you can ignore him, he's a little baby. The Chula Alma, Lagava de Dibadina, Dad Kinini. Any person, if you want to compare him to me, when it comes to Psak Allah of Choshe Mishpit, they're like a child compared to me. So I wouldn't even consider anything that he said. And then, after Nachman passed with such confidence that it's a commitment, he totally reversed his psak and said that it's an asmachta, he never meant it, and there's no kinyan at all, and the Malva doesn't keep any part of it. Rab Nachman. So if Rabbi asked Akasha on Rab Nachman's reversal, our Mishnah says that it works. Our Mishnah says, if you don't pay me back by January 1st, 2027, I keep your field. And what did the Mishnah Paskin in that case? It works. So how could you, Rab Nachman, say it doesn't work? Our Mishnah says it does work. Amalei, Rab Nachman said, the truth is, I really agree with the Mishnah's position that a smach is kanya. He made such a commitment, and it will be a valid liability. The problem is, Umin Yoimi Omar Asmach Loikan. The great Chacham and Yoimi said Asmach Loikan. And he convinced me to change my mind. So Frank the Gemara, so then Umin Yoimi Kasher Mesniz. Min Yoimi didn't have a problem with the Mishnah. Because he's saying Asmach Loikan, but our Mishnah seems to say that Asmach is Kanya. Zok the Gemara, eBay Sema Masnis Yosy, the Omar Asmach the Kanya. We have two options. Either we could say that our Mishnah is a Shitas Yachid of Rabbi Yosy, well, the Smach Kanya, but other Tanoim argue and all the Smach Kanya, or turning on Tamid Beis, or Iba Yisema. Turn over to Ahmed. Iba Yisema, the Amr like Knime Yaksha. The Loiva didn't just say, if I don't pay, I'm giving you the karka. He made a kinyan now, almanas, that I don't pay. So if you think about that, it's a little bit difficult to understand. If a guy didn't mean it, what's the difference if he said me'achshav? If he didn't say me'achshav, he didn't mean it. So the Ktsois HaChoshen interprets Rashi to explain that this isn't just a case where the Loiva said, Kini me'achshav. Rather, it's a much different case. And I'm going to learn the Rashi inside, explaining it the way the Ktsois HaChoshen understood it. So I'm looking at the top Rashi and Samavav days. The boy Sema must listen to Amalei Me'achshav Kanu. Imloi Etenlach Ad Shaloi Shon. He said, if I don't pay you within 3 years, you're going to be Kanyat now. Because that is the Lavas Machli. Rather, it's a Kinyan Gomer. It's a Kinyan Gomer. Shalmanas Mecher Gomer Hifzik B'Me'achshav. The Malva took the property now with a regular unconditional Kinyan. B'damim alalu for $100,000. The uzlay oizel gabe, and the loiva is giving the malva a steal of a deal, selling him a property that's worth $130,000 for a mere $100,000. And it was a pure sale. So how did the condition work? Zok Rashi, there was a secondary condition made after the malva basically made a full kinyan, an unconditional kinyan, without any asmachtas on the property, then he made a commitment back to the loiva. And this is the commitment that he made. And then the Malva made a commitment. If you come within 3 years and pay me in full, I will refund your field. I will give you back your field. So therefore, the kinyan itself was unconditional. No mokim for an asmachta. The condition is the Malva's commitment to return the field should he receive the money. That's how Rashi learns this Mayachshav. Most of the Rishonim don't learn Mayachshav that way. How did this pshat come out? This pshat came out because the Shulchan Aruch, when it quotes this halacha, the Shulchan Aruch quotes that if you say Me'achshav, there are some who hold that it's a good kinyan. And the Shach asks on the Shulchan Aruch, what do you mean there are some? It's a Mefurish Gemara that if you say Kni Me'achshav, it's not a problem of Asmachta. So Zokt, that maybe Rashi argues on this psak, because maybe Rashi understood Kni Me'achshav the way we just explained it, that it's not just a kinyan me'achshav, rather it's an unconditional kinyan, and it's the malveh or the lekech who's making the condition to give it back. Gewaltig. Amalei mar Yenuka umar Keshisha v'neider Rav Chisda l'Ravash. Rav Chisda had 2 children, and I guess he was very excited when he made the bris of the second son, and he gave him the same name as the first son. So therefore, one of his sons was called Mar Yenuka, one was called Makshisha, like Itcha and Azik. But instead, there was Mar Yenuka and Mar Keshisha. So at first glance, we think that Mar Yenuka is probably the younger child, and Mar Keshisha is probably the older brother. But there are those who learn exactly the opposite. Mar Yenuka means Mar Yenuka who was born when Rav Chisda was young, and Mar Keshisha means he was born when Rav Chisda was old, meaning that Mar Yenuka would be the old one, and the Mar Keshisha would be the young. So they told Rav Ashi, Hachi Amar Nardo. This is what the people of Nardo used to paskin. Mishmeid Rav Nachman in the name of Rav Nachman. Hayas Machta. So what is this Machta? The Loiva told him, if I don't pay you back within 3 years, you get to keep my field. So Bismane Kanye. After the 3 years, it's Kanye. If he doesn't pay back in the 3 years, the Malva keeps the property. But Loizmane, before the 3 years are up, Loi Kanye, the Malva is not Kanye the property. So Rabashi says, I don't have what the Chiddush is that. Amalei call me day, Bismane Kanye, but Loizmane Loi Kanye. Of course, if that was the deal, then in 3 years it's Kanye, so yeah, before the 3 years it won't be Kanye. Why just a great Chiddush in the name of Rav Nachman? So Rabashi says, let me tell you what Chiddush Rav Nachman meant to say. Dil Mahari Kamrisu. Maybe this is what you mean to say. What happens if Ashkechei V'Gavasamon? What if the Malva met a Loiva before the time was up? And the Loiva told the Malva, you know what, Malva, Kni, keep my property. Then you say Kni. You say that the Malva gets to keep the property because the Loiva was not pressured in any way at that point to give up his property. The money wasn't due yet. Yet he still said, take my property. He probably means it. It's a commitment he's giving. He's being mocked at the property. But Bosher's money, what if the time is up? Now the Loiva is under severe pressure because he owes the money, or else he'll lose the property. If there he said, that's Loikon. My timer. Maybe he didn't really mean to tell the Malva to be cutting his property. Maybe Machmas Kisupa Huda Kamerle. He's just saying Kni because he's embarrassed. But really he doesn't want to give up his property. But the Zokter Bashi but Veloy, that's not true. I disagree with the Psak. Tafilu begavs mane nami loikani. Even within the time, it's not kanya. And he's not sincere when he says, keep my property. Why did he say kni? Because he's thinking ahead. I don't want the Malva to come and approach me and pressure me. So I'll tell him now already, have my property, but he doesn't really mean it. Amra Papa, Hi Asmachta, this Asmachta, Zimdin Kani, Vizimdin Loika. Sometimes it will be Kani, sometimes not. It really depends on the circumstances. That will show us what the Loiva really was thinking and was he sincere or not. What happens if the time is up, the 3 years are up, he's got to come up with the cash, and they see him right before the deadline, they see him partying in the bar. Then we say Kani. Then we say he's Kani. Why is he Kani? Because if he wanted to somehow get his property, he would be sweating, trying to put some money together. The fact that he's drinking beer means he doesn't care. So he doesn't care that the Malva should be Kani. So there he wants to give it. But the Kamhapa Gazuzah, if you see him tearing Sarah trying to put together money from wherever source he can, then it's likely, because clearly you see he doesn't want to give up his property, he's trying to salvage it. I don't understand. Who said that when he's drinking, it means he doesn't care about his property. Maybe he's so stressed out of his mind trying to salvage his property. He's drinking to calm himself down. So don't say that it's a riot since he's drinking that he's willing to relinquish his property. Maybe he can't deal with the situation. Or inami, maybe maybe somebody told him, "Don't worry, I'm going to bail you out," so that he was partying, and then later on, a minute after you caught him partying, he might have just become aware that he's not getting that money. So therefore, Ella Amar Avina, in all these cases, you don't have any reason to assume that he wants to relinquish his property. But I'll tell you where you do have a right. If when he's liquidating his nechosim, trying to raise money, he doesn't want to reduce the value. He doesn't want to sell them for cheaper, because if he does, then all of his nechosim are going to drop in value because people are going to see that he's desperate. Then vadai kani, because you know something, if he really wanted to bail it out, he would be lowering the prices to come up with money. So since he's not relinquishing, he's not compromising on what he's demanding for any of the chazim that he's selling, it means he's not so desperate to come up with cash. So therefore, it's a simon that he doesn't care if the malva takes over his property. But Rabbi Achmed Difti didn't like that. What do you mean? Maybe the reason why he's not giving away anything for less, sure, if he really wanted to salvage his property, he should be selling at the discount so he can come up with cash. But maybe he's afraid to do that because if he sells for cheaper, what's going to happen is all of his possessions that he wants to sell, including his land, will drop in value because people are going to see that he's desperate. Elamar Papa, I'll give you the right litmus test. If he's a person who will never ever sell property, yet he designated this property to pay back his loan, there he for sure wants to give up the property because we know he's a guy that would never ever put a lien on his own property. Even though Rabban tell Nasmach, if it's an apoitiki where he designated this property to pay from, then apoitike hava lemigva midah. We say that he's designated this property to collect from. When he does that, then the malva in fact can seize the property to get his loan repaid. Frek Gemara, he never said you're cutting this to collect from. In other words, to say that this is the poitiki. He just had to be kind. So why is it any different than if he said kind? In fact, that's what he said. I don't even tell your kasha. The Amar Kani lemigvimid. Kani, are you telling me that your only problem is that he didn't speak out that it should be Kani lemigvimid? Take it to collect your loan from. He just had plain take it. And if he said take it to collect your loan from, so now you're going to think he means it. So if you still have the problem that he never really meant to give up his property. He's only saying it because he thinks he'll be able to come up with the money. Ella, that's not what her papa said. Ella, papa, that no matter what the malva can collect from, mahi, that the amaloi yehelach piroin elamisu. You know what the loiva told the malva? I'm giving you this property, and I'm not going to be paying you back in cash. I'm actually going to pay for the loan with this property, no matter what. It's not that if I don't have money until a certain date, then you get to keep the property. No, I'm actually going to be using the property to pay you. That's where the malva gets to keep the property. So there's clearly no asmachta there. Outright, the loiva made it very clear that that's how he's going to pay for the loan, by giving this property. Someone sold the property to his friend with a price. I'm taking full responsibility that if my bachayv seizes the property, I will compensate you in full. Amar lei, so the buyer said, Itarfulei minoi, if in fact your bachayv takes away this property, I want to come back after you, seller. Magvisli me idi idis isla. I don't want you to just give me any property you have. I want you to pick the best of the best properties that you have to compensate me. Amalei, the seller said, no, I'm not willing to do that. The best of the best properties I really want to hold on to. I'll be willing to give you my second best property. I'll give you other idis. It's not going to be the best of the best that I have, but it'll be really good stuff. What happened? His Bachayv came, seized the property that he sold. So now the buyer is going to come after him to collect on his price, and he'll want that idis that the moicher committed himself to give. But the problem is asa bitka shakali the idis. This super prime property that the seller never wanted to give up got flooded. So now that property is gone. So now the property that was designated to pay off the moicher, the lekech with, is now his best property. So Rav Papa wanted to say, Me'idis Omerle, Vakaima. He committed to give this property. This property is still there. That's the property that he will have to give the lekech for that price. Omerle Rabach Medivta Ravina, but Rabach Medivta told Ravina, I disagree. V'leimele ki amiloch anomagvina loch. When did the moicher commit to give this piece of property? That's because the Havalei Ide Idis Kaima. That's because he had another property that was even better. But Hashta Kaimile Idis B'Mokim Idis. Now that his Idis got flushed out, so now the Idis is his best. And the deal that he made was, I want to hold on to my best property, and I'll give you my second best property. So we have a machlokes, in fact, whether or not he's the lekech is entitled to that property, or if he has to take the second best property and he gets bumped out. About it. Rav Bar Shava have a Masuk Bey Rav Kahana Zusa. Rav Bar Shava was owed money by Rav Kahana. Amalei, Rav Kahana told him, Eloi Paranaloch if I don't pay by this and this date, Govi me Haicham. You can collect from this wine. And he didn't pay by that date. And after that, it was January 1st. By January 1st, he didn't pay up. And January 5th, wine went up. And now the wine is worth double what it was worth on January 1st. So the question is, whose wine went up? Was it the Malva's wine that went up? Or was it the Levi's wine that went up in value? Where do we say asmachta loikanya? That's if it's a piece of property. Nobody wants to sell their property. People want to hold on to their properties. But wine, someone who has wine is going to be selling it. Since anyway it's made to be sold, because it's no different than money. And let's say, in fact, that the Malva was cutting it right away, and if it went up after that point in time, the Malva should benefit from that inflation. But it's not true. Anytime you make a t'nai, if I don't pay, you get it. That doesn't work. Even by one. Amar Nachman. Don't worry about the now that we have the true Smachlikani, if the land was sitting by the Malva up until this time, and the Malva was eating Paris, Hader Arab Hader Peri. Not only does the Malva have to return the land to the Loive, if the Malva ate the Paris of the land while he had it, he had to pay back for that as well. Otherwise, it could be a Shiloh of Ribis. Remember the Savar Ab Nachman, Mechila B'Tach Live of Mechila. Are you telling me that Ab Nachman is saying that Mechila B'Tach Live of Mechila? I should correct myself. You know why Hader Peri? Hader Peri because it's Taka Loives. It's his money. So, Frank the Gemara, at the time where the Malva was eating the Paris, the Loiva thought the Malva was entitled to them. So that's called the Mechila B'Tos. At the time, he was Michael those Paris. Now, from the fact that Rav Nachman's paskening that the Malva has to pay back the Paris to the Loiva, it shows that he holds Mechila B'Tos Lav Mechila. But the problem is, for Itmar we learned, a Moicher Paris Dekala Chaver. Someone who sold Paris Dekala Chaver, Amar Avuna, actually Bar Loila, if the Paris are still not in existence yet, Yochel Lachsaboy, you could be Chayzer. But Mishabol Loila, once the Paris are there already, the commitment that he made to sell before is valid, and Yochel Lachsaboy. But Rav Nachman Omar, Af Mishabol Loila Yochel Lachsaboy. It's not a good Mechira. It's not a good Mechira if someone sells Paris Decker. However, Dr. Nachman, if before they realize that this sale is not valid, the buyer ate it, the buyer gets to keep it. So, Frank the Gemara, Nachman here says the buyer gets to keep it. So you see the Mechila B'Tos is a good Mechila. Why is it? By the case of the loan that we discussed earlier, where the Malva was holding on to the payers. Why over there there's the malva have to pay back the payers? Why over there don't you say that mechila b'tosh is a good mechila? So the Gemara, because hasam zvini hachalva. That's a sale. When there's a sale involved, yes, even though it looks like ribis, but it's all based on the sale. By a sale, we're not so makbid on Mexican ribis. But hachalva, in this case, we're talking about the whole transaction started off with a loan, and the land was collateral for the loan. There we're much more sensitive, and if we let the malva keep those payers, it's Mexican ribis, and therefore we would not allow the malva to keep those payers. Okay, Baruch Hashem, we finished Daf Samach Vav, and Bez Hashem tomorrow we're going to learn Daf Samach Zayin. Good tavach.
Why am I up? It's 11 o'clock. I'm just starting to clean up from Shabbos. I know.